The Council's betrayal ignited the fire. Now Earth's fleet surges through the cosmos. The massive station hung in space like a jewel. Zenith Prime was the pride of the Galactic Council, a structure so large it had its own gravity. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at its ports every day. Today, one of those ships carried humanity's last hope for acceptance. Commander Jake Morrison stood at the observation window of the ESS Defiant, watching the station grow larger as they approached. He was a tall man with short brown hair and tired eyes that had seen too many battles. For 15 years, he had dreamed of this moment. Earth was finally going to become a full member of the Galactic Council. Behind him, Dr. Linda Hayes was organizing data pads. She was Earth's top expert on alien biology, a woman who had spent her whole career studying the species that made up the Council. Her red hair was pulled back in a practical bun and her green eyes sparkled with excitement. "This is it, Jake," she said. "After all these years, we're finally going to be equals." Captain Ryan Cooper walked onto the bridge. He was the ship's commander, a steady man who rarely showed emotion. Docking procedures initiated. "We'll be inside in 20 minutes, Jake nodded. He felt the weight of Earth on his shoulders. Billions of people were counting on him. For 15 years, humanity had done everything the Council asked. They had protected Council trade ships from pirates. They had shared their medical discoveries. They had sent their soldiers to die in conflicts that weren't even their own. All of it to prove that humans deserved a seat at the table. The Defiant slid smoothly into its docking bay. The station's artificial gravity took hold, and Jake felt the familiar pull of weight returning to his body. He straightened his uniform and checked his appearance one last time. Today he represented all of Earth. The docking ramp extended with a hiss. Jake, Linda, and Ryan walked down into the station. They were met by a Council escort, a group of tall, thin aliens with blue skin and 4 arms. The aliens said nothing, just gestured for the humans to follow. Zenith Prime's interior was breathtaking. The corridors were wide enough to drive a truck through, with ceilings that soared overhead. Holographic displays showed ships coming and going. Aliens of every shape and size walked past, barely glancing at the humans. To them, Earth was just another backwater planet trying to join the big leagues. The escort led them to the grand chamber. Jake had seen pictures, but nothing prepared him for the reality. The room was enormous, with a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside. 12 massive seats arranged in a circle dominated the space. These were the thrones of the Council, one for each of the elder species. Already seated was Ambassador Karen Wells, Earth's diplomatic representative to the Council. She was a woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp intelligence in her eyes. She had worked for decades to get Earth to this point. When she saw Jake and the others, she smiled with relief. "You made it," she said quietly. "The vote is scheduled for 1 hour from now. I think we have enough support." Jake wanted to believe her. He looked around at the Council members taking their seats. The Vithari were reptilian creatures, long and serpentine with scales that shimmered like oil. Their leader, High Chancellor Vorth, was ancient even by their standards. His eyes were cold and calculating. The Menkari looked like living crystals, their bodies made of a transparent mineral that hummed with internal light. They communicated through vibrations that translators turned into speech. The Zelthrax were insectoid with compound eyes and clicking mandibles. There were 9 other species, each one powerful in its own right. The session began with formal greetings. Each species had its own ritual, and the humans watched patiently as the Council went through its ancient ceremonies. Finally, Chancellor Vorth spoke. "We gathered today to consider the petition of Earth for full membership in the Galactic Council." His voice was smooth, almost hypnotic. "Ambassador Wells, you may present your case." Karen stood and walked to the center of the circle. Jake watched with pride as she laid out humanity's accomplishments. She showed holographic displays of human ships defending Council convoys. She presented medical research that had saved millions of lives across dozens of worlds. She displayed the trade agreements that had enriched Council members. "For 15 years, humanity has proven itself," Karen said. "We have met every requirement you set before us. We have shed our blood for the Council's safety. We have shared our knowledge freely. We ask now only for what we have earned. Equality." The Council members murmured among themselves. Jake felt hope rising in his chest. Surely they could see that Earth deserved this. Surely all the sacrifice meant something. Chancellor Vorth raised one scaled hand for silence. The council has reviewed your petition with great care, he said. His tongue flickered out, tasting the air. We have reached a decision. Jake held his breath. This was it. This was the moment everything changed. However, Forth continued, before we announce our decision, there is a matter of truth that must be addressed. Something in his tone made Jake's blood run cold. He glanced at Linda, who looked confused. Ryan's hand moved subtly toward his sidearm. The truth, Forth said, is that this council has never intended to grant Earth full membership. The words hung in the air like poison. Karen's face went white. What are you saying? She demanded. Forth's expression might have been a smile. It was hard to tell with reptilian features. Humanity has been useful to us. Your military protects our interests. Your scientists provide innovations we can exploit. But you are too dangerous, too unpredictable, too ambitious. In another century, you would challenge our authority. We cannot allow that. Jake felt his world crumbling. You used us, he said quietly. Yes, Forth replied without shame. And now we will eliminate you. The council has made arrangements with the Krell Dominion. Even now, their invasion fleet prepares to strike your colonies. We have provided them with the coordinates of every human settlement. In return, they have paid us handsomely in rare minerals and trade concessions. Linda gasped. The Krell were humanity's worst enemy, a brutal empire that conquered through overwhelming force. Their ships were powerful, their warriors savage. A full Krell invasion fleet would be unstoppable. Once the Krell have destroyed Earth and its colonies, Forth continued, we will divide your territories among council members. Your technology will be seized. Your resources will be ours, and the galaxy will be safer without your aggressive species. Karen found her voice. This is genocide. You're talking about killing billions of innocent people. We are talking about survival. The Menkari representative chimed in, their crystal body resonating. Humanity grows too quickly, advances too rapidly. You are a threat to the established order. Jake stepped forward, rage burning through his shock. We trusted you. We died for you. And we are grateful for your service, Forth said mockingly. Guards, place the humans in detention. The chamber's doors burst open. Armored soldiers poured in, dozens of them from different council species. Jake reached for his weapon, but Ryan grabbed his arm. We're outnumbered, Ryan hissed. Don't give them an excuse to kill us here. The guards surrounded them. Jake looked around desperately, searching for allies, but every council member watched with cold indifference. Some even looked pleased. They were marched through the corridors of Zenith Prime. Other aliens stopped to stare. The word was already spreading. Earth had been betrayed. Humanity was finished. The detention center was deep in the station's lower levels. The cells were designed for the galaxy's most dangerous criminals, with force fields and multiple layers of security. Jake, Linda, Karen, and Ryan were shoved into one cell together. The force field hummed to life, trapping them inside. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The weight of what had just happened crushed down on them. Everything they had worked for was a lie. All the soldiers who had died protecting council ships had died for nothing. Earth was going to be destroyed, and the council was going to profit from it. Finally, Karen spoke. We have to warn Earth. The Krell fleet will strike the outer colonies first. If we can get a message through, how long do we have? Linda asked. Karen's face was grim. A message to Earth will take 3 weeks to arrive. The Krell can reach the outer colonies in 4 weeks. Earth will have maybe a week to prepare. That's not enough time, Ryan said. The Krell will have overwhelming numbers. Earth doesn't have the fleet strength to stop them. Jake slammed his fist against the cell wall. The force field sparked where he hit it. There has to be a way. We can't just sit here and wait for our entire species to die. Linda was thinking, her scientific mind racing through possibilities. The station's communication systems are heavily guarded. But there might be another way. If we could reach the docking bay, get back to the Defiant. The ship's been impounded, Ryan interrupted. Council security has control of it, and we're locked in a maximum security cell with no weapons and no tools. Then we'll have to improvise, Jake said. He looked at each of them in turn. I'm not going to sit here while Earth burns. Who's with me? Karen nodded immediately. Despite her age, her eyes burned with determination. Linda squared her shoulders. Ryan cracked his knuckles. We'll need a plan, Linda said, and we'll need to move fast. The Council's betrayal ignited the fire, and now, Earth's fleet surges through the cosmos. The cell was cold and silent. Jake Morrison paced like a caged animal while the others watched. They had been prisoners for 6 hours now, and every minute that passed was a minute closer to Earth's destruction. Linda Hayes sat cross-legged on the floor, studying the cell's design. Her scientific mind cataloged every detail. The walls were made of some kind of composite material, smooth and seamless. The force field at the front shimmered with barely visible energy. Guards passed by every 30 minutes on patrol. The force field is keyed to multiple species biology, she said quietly. It's designed to stop everything from the Vithari to the Zelthrax. But the power source has to be local. These detention centers are modular. Ryan Cooper leaned against the wall, his military training keeping him calm despite their situation. What are you thinking, Doc? Linda's eyes were distant, working through a problem. The Minkari guards. They're crystalline, right? Their biology is based on resonance frequencies. They use vibrations to communicate and to move. So, Jake stopped pacing. So the cleaning supplies the guards use have to be compatible with their biology. They can't have chemicals that would damage crystal structures. But those same chemicals might react differently with organic compounds. Ambassador Karen Wells understood immediately. You're going to make a weapon. Not a weapon exactly, Linda corrected. More like a disruption device. If I can get the right compounds, I might be able to create something that interferes with the Minkari's resonance. It won't kill them, but it should confuse their neural matrices long enough for us to get past. Jake grinned. It was a desperate plan, but it was a plan. How do we get the supplies? Linda pointed to the corner of the cell where cleaning equipment sat on a small cart. The guards had left it there after their last maintenance cycle, probably thinking the prisoners couldn't use it for anything dangerous. They underestimated us, Linda said with satisfaction. She went to work immediately, mixing chemicals from different containers. The smell was awful and Jake had to breathe through his mouth. Linda worked with practiced precision, her hands steady despite the pressure. After 2 hours, she had created a sticky paste that glowed faintly in the dim light. This should work, she said. But I only have enough for 1 or 2 guards, and the effect won't last long, maybe 60 seconds. Then we make those 60 seconds count, Jake said. They waited for the next patrol. Time crawled by with agonizing slowness. Finally, they heard the distinctive sound of crystalline feet clicking on the floor. 2 Minkari guards appeared, their translucent bodies refracting the corridor lights into rainbow patterns. The guards barely glanced at the prisoners as they walked past. They had seen 100 species locked in these cells. None had ever escaped. Now, Jake whispered. Linda threw the paste through the force field. It sailed through without resistance and splattered across both guards. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Minkari began to vibrate wildly. Their bodies pulsed with chaotic light. The humming sound they normally made became a horrible screeching. The force field flickered and died. Ryan was already moving. He dove through the opening and grabbed the security controls from one of the disabled guards. His fingers flew over the alien interface, and suddenly all the cells on their level opened. Go, 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 Jake shouted. They ran down the corridor. Behind them, alarms began to wail. The paste's effect on the Minkari guards was already fading, and they would report the escape within minutes. The whole station would be hunting them. They rounded a corner and nearly collided with another group of humans. Lieutenant Paul Grant and Sergeant Amy Foster stood there, looking as surprised as Jake felt. Commander Morrison? Paul was young, barely 25, with blonde hair and a quick smile that was absent now. We thought you were dead. We're hard to kill, Jake replied. What are you doing here? Amy Foster was a tough woman with short black hair and the build of someone who spent serious time in the gym. When they grabbed you at the council chamber, we were on patrol in the lower decks. We've been hiding in the maintenance tunnels trying to figure out how to mount a rescue. Well, we rescued ourselves, Ryan said. Now we need to get to the Defiant. Can you get us to the impound docks? Paul nodded. We've mapped most of the maintenance access routes. Follow us. They moved through the hidden passages of Zenith Prime, the narrow tunnels that kept the station running but that most people never saw. Emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow. The sounds of the station chased them through the walls, footsteps and shouts and the whine of security vehicles. After 30 minutes of running, they emerged near the impound docks. Through a viewing port, Jake could see the Defiant sitting in a secure berth surrounded by council security ships. Guards patrolled the dock in force. Getting aboard would be impossible. We need a distraction, Karen said. I have an idea, Amy replied. She pointed to a power junction box. These stations all use the same basic design. If I overload that junction, it'll cause a cascade failure in this sector. Lights will go out, doors will lock. It'll be chaos for maybe 5 minutes. That's all we need, Jake said. Amy got to work. She was good with electronics, her hands confident as she rewired the junction. Sparks flew and she cursed under her breath, but she kept at it. Finally, she stepped back. Ready when you are, Commander. Jake took a deep breath. This was it. If they failed here, Earth was doomed. Do it. Amy triggered the overload. Instantly, the lights went out. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing everything in dim backup lighting. Alarms blared. Doors all over the dock level began to malfunction, some locking, others opening at random. Move, Jake ordered. They sprinted onto the dock. Guards were shouting in confusion, trying to figure out what was happening. In the chaos, 6 running humans didn't immediately stand out. They made it halfway to the Defiant before someone spotted them. Escapees. Stop them! Energy weapons fired. Paul Grant fell with a scream, his leg burned by a plasma bolt. Amy stopped to help him, but Jake grabbed her. Keep moving. We can't help him if we're all dead. It was the hardest thing Jake had ever done, leaving one of his people behind. But Paul was already being surrounded by guards. The mission had to come first. They reached the Defiant's access ramp. The ship's security was locked down, but Ryan was the captain. He knew every override code. His fingers danced across the control panel while energy bolts scorched the metal around them. The ramp opened. They rushed inside. Ryan ran for the bridge while the others headed to defensive positions. Jake could hear guards swarming up the ramp behind them. Ryan, I need engines now, Jake shouted into the comm. Working on it. They've got the Defiant's systems locked down tight. Linda sealed the inner airlock, buying them precious seconds. Through the door's viewport, Jake could see guards trying to cut through. They had maybe a minute before the Council soldiers breached. On the bridge, Ryan was fighting the station's computer systems. The Defiant's engines were offline, weapons disabled, navigation locked. The Council had been thorough, but they hadn't counted on human desperation and ingenuity. I can't unlock everything, Ryan said through gritted teeth, but I can activate the emergency jump drive. Karen looked worried. That drive is experimental. We've never tested it in real conditions. Then this'll be the test, Ryan shot back. He continued typing. But I can't calculate a safe jump. We'll be jumping blind. The inner airlock buckled. Guards were almost through. Jake made the decision. Do it. Blind jump. Anywhere but here. Ryan's hand hovered over the final command. A blind jump was insanely dangerous. They could emerge inside a star, or in the middle of a debris field, or so far from anywhere that they'd die of starvation before reaching help. But staying meant certain death. Jump initiated, Ryan said. The Defiant's emergency drive charged with a sound like thunder. The whole ship vibrated. Through the viewports, Jake saw Council ships trying to grab them with tractor beams. Energy weapons lanced out, scoring hits on the Defiant's hull. Then reality twisted. Jump drives worked by creating a bubble of altered space around a ship, allowing it to move faster than light. A normal jump was carefully calculated, with a specific destination in mind. This jump was pure chaos. The Defiant punched through into jump space without knowing where it would emerge. For a moment that felt like eternity. They existed nowhere. Jake's stomach lurched. His vision blurred. He tasted copper and heard sounds that shouldn't exist. Then they crashed back into normal space. Alarms shrieked. The Defiant was tumbling, its systems damaged from the rough jump. Ryan fought the controls, firing maneuvering thrusters to stabilize their spin. Slowly, painfully, the ship came under control. Status report, Jake demanded. Linda was checking her console. Hull breaches on 3 decks. Jump drive is completely burned out. Main engines are functional but operating at 60%. Weapons are offline. We're hurt bad, Commander. Where are we? Karen asked. Ryan studied the navigation display. Deep space. I'm not reading any nearby systems. We're far from the trade routes. He worked through the calculations. New Horizon Station is the closest human outpost. 2 weeks away at our current speed. 2 weeks. Earth had maybe 6 weeks before the Krell fleet arrived. If, the Council's betrayal ignited the fire, Now Earth's fleet surges through the cosmos. The ESS Defiant traveled through space like a wounded animal seeking shelter. For 13 days they had been running. The ship's engines hummed with strain, pushed beyond their design limits. Every hour brought them closer to New Horizon Station. and every hour brought Earth closer to extinction. Jake Morrison hadn't slept more than a few hours since their escape. He spent his time on the bridge, watching the scanner displays and waiting for Council hunter ships to appear. He knew Chancellor Vorth wouldn't let them go. The humans knew too much, had seen too much. The Council would want them silenced. Linda Hayes worked in what was left of their science lab. She had salvaged data from the Council's systems during their escape. Information about the Krell invasion plan. The numbers made her sick. 3,000 warships, maybe more. The Krell were bringing enough firepower to crack Earth like an egg. On the 14th day, New Horizon Station appeared on their scanners. Jake felt relief wash through him. The station was a military installation, one of humanity's forward defensive positions. It bristled with weapons and housed elements of Earth's Third Fleet. "Open a channel," Jake ordered. Ryan Cooper worked his console. "Channel open, Commander." "New Horizon Station, this is Commander Jake Morrison of the ESS Defiant. We are declaring an Alpha Priority emergency. I need to speak with Admiral Pete Collins immediately." There was a pause. Then a gruff voice came through the speakers. "This is Admiral Collins. Morrison, what's going on? You're supposed to be at Zenith Prime for the membership vote. Admiral, the Council betrayed us. They're working with the Krell. An invasion fleet is coming. We have maybe 5 weeks before they hit the outer colonies." Another pause, longer this time. "That's a serious accusation, Commander. Do you have proof?" "Yes, sir. Sending data files now." Linda transmitted everything they had. The Council's communications with the Krell, financial records showing payments, navigation logs proving the Council had provided Earth's colony coordinates. It was all there, undeniable evidence of genocide in the making. The silence from the other end stretched for minutes. Jake could imagine Admiral Collins reviewing the data, his face growing darker with each page. Finally, Collins spoke again. His voice was hard as steel. "Doc at Base 7. We need to talk in person." The Defiant limped into the station. As soon as they were secured, Jake, Linda, and Karen were escorted to the Admiral's office. The other crew members headed for the medical bay. They had all been living on emergency rations and adrenaline for 2 weeks. Admiral Pete Collins was a big man with gray hair and scars from a dozen battles. He had commanded ships for 40 years and had the kind of presence that made people stand straighter in his presence. Right now, he looked like someone had kicked him in the gut. "Sit down," he said. It wasn't an invitation. They sat. The Admiral's office was plain and functional, just like the man himself. A star map covered one wall, showing human territory and the surrounding space. So many colonies, so many billions of lives. "I've reviewed your evidence," Collins said. "It's real. I had my intelligence people verify it. The Council really did sell us out to the Krell." He slammed his fist on the desk. "Those bastards. We bled for them. We died for them. What are we going to do, sir?" Jake asked. Collins stood and walked to the star map. "I'm activating the Genesis Protocol. It's a contingency plan we developed for existential threats. Every human military vessel will receive an emergency recall. Every shipyard will shift to wartime production. Every resource we have will be mobilized. Will it be enough?" Linda asked quietly. "I don't know," Collins admitted. "The Krell have us outnumbered badly. But we have some advantages. Our ships are newer, our weapons more advanced. And we have something the Krell don't." "What's that?" Karen asked. Collins smiled grimly. "We have nothing left to lose. The Council thought they could exterminate us quietly. They're about to learn what happens when you back humans into a corner." Within hours, New Horizon Station became a hive of activity. Emergency signals went out on all military channels. Ships began arriving from patrol routes and forward positions. Crews were briefed on the situation. The word spread quickly through the ranks. The Council had betrayed them. War was coming. On Earth, President Helen Carter received the news in her office. She was a woman in her 50s who had led Earth through economic crisis and natural disasters. But nothing had prepared her for this. The galaxy's established powers had sentenced humanity to death. She called an emergency session of the unified Earth government. Representatives from every nation gathered. When Jake's message played for them, showing the Council's betrayal, the reaction was shock followed by rage. President Carter addressed the world from the UEG chambers. Every screen on Earth showed her face. "Citizens of Earth," she began, "I have difficult news. The Galactic Council, which we have served faithfully for 15 years, has betrayed us. They have allied with the Krell Dominion to destroy humanity, An invasion fleet is coming. She paused, letting that sink in. Across Earth, billions of people absorbed the terrible truth. The Council thought we would break. They thought we would beg for mercy. They were wrong. Carter's voice grew stronger. For 15 years, we held back our potential. We limited our military to please the Council. We restrained our industrial capacity to follow their rules. We made ourselves weak to prove we were peaceful. No more, she declared. If the galaxy wants Earth destroyed, they will have to burn for every inch. We will not go quietly into the darkness. We will fight, and we will show them what humanity is truly capable of. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Earth had resources it hadn't used, technology it hadn't deployed, weapons it hadn't built, all because the Council had demanded restraint. Now those restraints were off. Shipyards that had been producing 3 vessels a year shifted to wartime production. 10 ships a month rolled off the assembly lines. Factories that made civilian goods retooled for military hardware. Research facilities that had been working on theoretical science turned their attention to practical weapons. Dr. Greg Walker, one of Earth's top physicists, stood in his lab looking at components salvaged from the Defiant's escape. Pieces of Council ships, damaged systems, fragments of alien technology. For years he had been told such research was too aggressive, too militaristic. Now he had permission to do whatever it took. We've been playing by their rules, Greg muttered to his assistant. Time to show them what human rules look like. He worked for 72 hours straight, barely stopping to eat. What he discovered changed everything. The Council's technology was old, refined over centuries. It was elegant and efficient. But it wasn't innovative. They had stopped pushing boundaries long ago. Human technology was crude by comparison, but it was flexible and adaptable. Greg found ways to combine Council innovations with human engineering. The result was something new, something neither species had achieved alone. He presented his findings to a joint military and scientific committee. I can improve our ship's speed by 30%. I can make our armor twice as strong. I can increase our weapons' power by 50%. Give me 3 weeks and access to a shipyard. They gave him 2 weeks in the Mars orbital yards. Meanwhile, Fleet Admiral Nicole Patterson took command of Earth's combined forces. She was a legend, a woman who had won battles against impossible odds during the frontier wars. She was in her early 60s, with steel gray hair and eyes that could cut through armor plating. Nicole gathered every captain and admiral in the human fleet for a strategic briefing. Over 200 senior officers attended via hologram. The Krell outnumber us, she stated bluntly. They have more ships, more soldiers, more resources. But they've never fought us when we were truly unleashed. They've only seen us operating under Council restrictions. She brought up tactical displays. The Krell fight with overwhelming force. They're not subtle, not creative. They rely on their numbers to crush opposition. That's their weakness. We will not fight them on their terms. What are our orders, Admiral? Someone asked. We defend the colonies while Earth prepares. We buy time for the shipyards to build more vessels. And we make the Krell pay for every inch of space they take. Nicole's smile was predatory. They want a war? We'll give them one they'll never forget. In orbit above Earth, the new ships were taking shape. Incorporating Greg Walker's innovations, they were faster and deadlier than any human vessel before them. The first off the production line was a new class of warship, christened the ESS Titan. It was a monster, bristling with weapons and armored with composite materials that could withstand incredible punishment. But building ships took time, and time was the one thing Earth didn't have. Intelligence reports confirmed the Krell fleet had entered human space. They were taking their time, gathering their forces for a massive simultaneous strike on all 12 outer colonies. Then the first colony went dark. New Salem, a world of 6 million people, stopped transmitting. Scout ships were dispatched immediately. What they found made Jake Morrison physically sick when he saw the footage. New Salem was gone. Not just destroyed, but annihilated. Cities reduced to craters. Forests burned to ash. The atmosphere itself was poisoned. 6 million people dead in hours. The Krell had left nothing. The Council's betrayal ignited the fire. Now Earth's fleet surges through the cosmos. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiant, watching his battle group prepare to jump. 25 ships, all carrying the fury of a betrayed species. His mission was simple in theory, brutally difficult in practice. Hurt the Krell so badly they would have to slow their advance. The ships around him represented the best of human engineering. Fast attack cruisers, heavy destroyers, missile boats bristling with weapons. Each vessel was crewed by people who had seen the footage from New Salem. Each captain was hungry for payback. All ships report ready. Admiral, Ryan Cooper said from the tactical station. Jake had insisted Ryan stay as his tactical officer. They had been through too much together to be separated now. Linda Hayes was also aboard, serving as science officer and alien technology specialist. Coordinates locked for Hadron Sector, Ryan continued. Intelligence says the Krell have established a logistics hub there. Supply ships, fuel depots, repair facilities. Then that's where we hit them, Jake said. All ships prepare to jump on my mark. 3, 2, 1 mark. Space twisted and the fleet disappeared into faster-than-light travel. For 3 days they traveled through the vast emptiness between stars. Jake used the time to drill his crews, running combat simulations over and over. They had to be perfect. There would be no second chances. When they dropped out of jump space in the Hadron Sector, the tactical display lit up with targets. The Krell logistics hub was massive, a sprawling complex of orbital stations around a gas giant. Supply freighters moved between the stations. Escort vessels patrolled in lazy formations. The Krell weren't expecting an attack this far from the front lines. They think we're still on the defensive, Jake muttered. All ships weapons free. Target the supply vessels first, then the stations. Move fast, hit hard. The human fleet accelerated to attack speed. For a few precious seconds they had complete surprise. Then the first railgun shots tore through a Krell supply ship, and the battle began. Jake's ships moved with practiced precision. They had trained for this, studied every tactical simulation. Human vessels scattered into 3 ship hunter groups, each group targeting a different section of the hub. Missiles streaked through space. Railgun rounds punched through Krell armor. Energy weapons carved molten wounds in enemy hulls. The Krell scrambled to respond. Their escort vessels broke formation and charged toward the attackers. But they were used to fighting enemies who matched their direct, brutal style. They weren't prepared for human tactics. Human ships didn't stand and trade shots like the Krell expected. They used speed and maneuverability, dancing around the heavier Krell vessels. They coordinated their attacks with perfect timing, 3 ships concentrating fire on one target before moving to the next. Krell destroyer closing on the Defiant. Ryan called out. Range 4,000 kilometers. Let it come, Jake ordered. Hold course. The Krell ship was larger than the Defiant, its weapons more powerful. It fired, an energy bolt seared past the Defiant's hull. One struck home, shaking the ship. Damage alarms wailed. Now, Jake said calmly. The Defiant rolled hard and fired its main railgun. At close range, the electromagnetically accelerated projectile hit the Krell destroyer's command section with devastating force. The alien ship staggered, its forward section crumpling. Before it could recover, 2 more human ships hit it from different angles. The destroyer exploded in a ball of superheated gas. The battle raged for 3 hours. The Krell fought with savage determination, but they were outmaneuvered and overwhelmed. One by one, their supply ships were destroyed. The orbital stations were reduced to burning wreckage. The fuel depots detonated in spectacular fireballs that lit up the gas giant below. When it was over, 17 Krell vessels were destroyed or crippled. The logistics hub was gone, and Jake had lost only 2 ships. All vessels form up for pursuit, Jake ordered. We're not done yet. Ryan looked surprised. Admiral, standard doctrine is to withdraw after a successful raid. The Krell expect us to follow standard doctrine, Jake replied. That's why we're going to do the opposite. Using intelligence gathered from captured Krell computers, Jake's fleet jumped deeper into enemy territory. They found a forward staging area, a massive orbital complex where the Krell were gathering ships for their invasion. It was defended by over 60 warships, plus the station's own formidable weapons. The smart move would have been to retreat and report the location. Let Earth's high command decide how to deal with it. But Jake looked at those 60 ships and thought about Earth's colonies. Every ship he destroyed here was one that wouldn't be killing humans later. We're going in, he announced. His captains didn't question the order. They trusted Jake, and they wanted revenge for New Salem. The human fleet accelerated toward the staging area at maximum speed. The Krell saw them coming and formed a defensive wall. They had numbers and firepower on their side, but they didn't have human fury. Jake's battle plan was insane. He split his force into 3 groups. The first would hit the Krell line head-on, drawing their attention. The second would sweep around the flank. The third, led by Jake himself, would punch through the weakest point in the Krell formation and go after the station itself. The Battle of Hadron 7 became legendary. For 18 hours, 25 human ships fought 60 Krell vessels in a brutal knife fight. Space was filled with weapons fire, exploding ships and desperate maneuvers. Jake led his group through the Krell lines like a spear through flesh. The Defiant's armor was scored and blackened, its shields barely holding. But it kept moving, kept firing. The human ships around him were battered but unbroken. They reached the station and unleashed everything they had. Missiles by the hundreds, railgun rounds, energy weapons firing on overload. The station was tough, designed to withstand attack. But human weapons were designed to destroy. The station's main reactor went critical. The explosion was visible across the entire star system. A miniature sun that consumed the station and took 3 Krell ships with it. With their staging area destroyed, the Krell fleet began to waver. Human ships pressed their advantage, striking at damaged vessels, exploiting gaps in formation. The Krell started to retreat, pulling back to regroup. Jake didn't let them go easily. His ships harried them, picking off stragglers. By the time the battle ended, 38 Krell ships were destroyed. The staging area was gone, and the Krell invasion timeline had been pushed back by months. Jake had lost 9 ships out of his 25. Good people, brave people had died, but they had accomplished something important. They had shown the Krell that humanity would not be an easy kill. While Jake was raiding Krell territory, Captain Lisa Morgan was leading her own mission into Council space. Her battle group consisted of 32 ships, all fast vessels optimized for hit-and-run attacks. Lisa was younger than Jake, only 35, but she had earned her rank through brilliant tactical victories during the Frontier Wars. She had short dark hair and a reputation for aggressive command decisions. Her target was a Vothari trade nexus, one of the stations where the Council had received payment from the Krell for betraying Earth. The station wasn't heavily defended. The Vothari assumed they were safe in Council space, far from any conflict. Lisa's ships dropped out of jump space right on top of the station. Before the Vothari could even react, human weapons were firing. The trade nexus's shields held for about 30 seconds before collapsing under concentrated fire. Boarding parties. Go, Lisa ordered. Marines in powered armor launched from the human ships, crossing the gap to the station. They breached the hull and fought through the corridors. The Vothari guards were no match for human Marines driven by rage over 6 million dead civilians. The Marines secured the station's computer core and downloaded everything. Financial records, communications, shipping manifests, all the proof anyone would need to see the Council's guilt. Then Lisa did something unexpected. She opened a broadcast on all frequencies, making sure every ship and station in the sector could hear. "This is Captain Lisa Morgan of the Earth Fleet," she said. "We have evidence that the Galactic Council conspired with the Krell Dominion to commit genocide against humanity. We are transmitting that evidence now. Let the galaxy see what your leaders truly are." The data flooded across every communication channel. Financial records showing the Council's payment from the Krell. Communications logs where Council members discussed the invasion timeline. Even a recording of Chancellor Vorth's speech at Zenith Prime, where he openly admitted the betrayal. The reaction across the galaxy was immediate and profound. Minor species who had always feared the Council now saw their suspicions confirmed. The elder races, it turned out, were not benevolent guides. They were ruthless politicians willing to commit genocide to protect their power. Several species withdrew their representatives from the Council immediately. Others began arming themselves, worried they might be next on the Council's elimination list. The galactic order that had stood for thousands of years began to crack. Back on Earth, Dr. Greg Walker unveiled humanity's next weapon. He called it a carrier ship, and it was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Where traditional warships relied on their own weapons, carriers launched. The Council's betrayal ignited the fire. Now Earth's fleet surges through the cosmos. The Arcturus system was silent, waiting. Asteroid fields drifted in their ancient orbits around a blue-white star. Hidden among those rocks were 300 human warships, their crews at battle stations. Every eye watched the scanners. Every hand rested near weapons controls. Admiral Nicole Patterson stood on the bridge of the ESS Titan. Earth's first dreadnought. The massive ship was designed for one purpose: to survive anything and destroy everything in its path. Its armor was meters thick. Its weapons could crack a moon. It was humanity's answer to the question of what happens when you push them too far. "Any moment now," said her tactical officer. Patterson nodded. Intelligence had tracked the Krell fleet's approach for days. Over 2,000 warships were converging on Arcturus, intending to punch through to Earth's core colonies. The Krell High Admiral commanded from their largest carrier, confident that overwhelming numbers would crush human resistance. They were about to learn otherwise. "Contact," sensors called out. Multiple jump signatures. Krell fleet emerging. Space rippled and tore. Ship after ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel, so many that the tactical display became a solid mass of red hostile markers. 2,300 vessels, ranging from small frigates to massive battleships. It was the largest fleet the Krell had ever assembled. The Krell formation was textbook perfect, a demonstration of power meant to intimidate. They advanced in waves, confident and unstoppable. They had fought dozens of species and crushed them all. Humanity would be no different. "All ships hold positions," Patterson ordered. "Let them come to us." The Krell fleet moved deeper into the system, heading for the inner planets where human colonies waited. They passed through the outer asteroid fields without incident. Their admiral probably thought the humans had retreated, that the sight of such overwhelming force had broken their will. Then the trap sprang shut. Minefields that had been laid over weeks activated. Hundreds of mines, each containing fusion warheads, detonated throughout the Krell formation. The explosions were like new stars being born. Shields overloaded, hulls cracked. The perfect Krell formation shattered into chaos. "Now," Patterson said calmly, "all ships, weapons free." The asteroids came alive with human vessels. Ships that had been hidden under stealth fields dropped their camouflage and opened fire. Railguns, missiles, energy beams all unleashed at once. The concentrated fire was devastating. The carriers ESS Vengeance and ESS Retribution launched their drone swarms. 600 AI-controlled fighters swept into the Krell fleet like locusts. They moved too fast for Krell gunners to track, striking at weak points with perfect precision. A dozen drones would concentrate on one ship's engines. Another group would target weapon systems. The Krell had never faced anything like it. In the first 30 minutes of battle, the Krell lost over 200 ships. Their admiral tried to restore order, shouting commands that were delayed by the communication chaos the mines had caused. Individual Krell captains made their own decisions, some retreating, others charging forward. The fleet fragmented. Jake Morrison commanded the assault wing, 20 of humanity's fastest ships. His mission was the most dangerous one: penetrate deep into enemy lines and kill the Krell command structure. "Follow me in," Jake ordered his captains. "Stay tight, move fast." The Defiant led the charge. Around Jake, his ships formed a spear point that punched into the Krell fleet. They moved too quickly for the larger Krell vessels to target effectively. When enemy ships did get locks, human pilots used the asteroids as cover, weaving through the field with skill born from desperation. Krell fighters launched to intercept. The space between fleets became a furious dogfight. Human pilots were outnumbered but better trained. They used tactics that the rigid Krell couldn't counter, flying in pairs to cover each other, using the asteroids as weapons by leading Krell fighters to crash into the rocks. Jake's wing lost ships. The ESS Falcon took a direct hit and exploded. The ESS Ranger's engines failed, and it drifted helplessly until Krell guns finished it. Each loss hurt, but Jake couldn't stop. The mission was everything. The Krell command carrier was massive, 3 times the size of the Titan. It was surrounded by escort vessels and protected by overlapping shields. Getting to it would cost lives, but without its leadership, the Krell fleet would fall apart. "All ships concentrate fire on the escorts," Jake ordered. "Clear me a path." His captains didn't hesitate. They threw their ships at the Krell escorts with reckless bravery. Missiles and railgun rounds hammered at the enemy. One escort exploded. Another lost power and drifted. A gap opened in the defensive wall. Jake took the Defiant through that gap. Behind him, only 5 ships remained from his original 20. The others were destroyed or too damaged to continue, but 5 ships would be enough. They had to be. The Krell command carrier turned its weapons on the Defiant. Energy beams scorched past. Missiles detonated close enough to shake the ship. Jake's pilot twisted and turned, pushing the engines beyond safety limits. Alarms wailed. Hull plating buckled under the strain. "Get me close," Jake shouted over the noise. "Right up against their hull." "That's suicide," Ryan Cooper said from Tactical. "Maybe. Do it anyway." The Defiant roared toward the command carrier at full thrust. Krell guns tracked it, fired, missed. Then the Defiant was too close. Right up against the carrier's massive hull where the larger ship's weapons couldn't depress enough to target it. "Fire everything," Jake ordered. "Every weapon we have, maximum power, same point on their hull." The Defiant shuddered as every railgun, missile launcher, and energy weapon fired simultaneously. The focused barrage struck one section of the command carrier's hull over and over. Armor melted. Internal structure buckled. Then the Defiant's weapons punched through into the carrier's interior. "Target their reactor," Jake said. "One more salvo." Ryan worked his console with flying fingers. Targeting solution locked, firing. The last volley of missiles streaked through the breach in the hull and detonated inside the command carrier's engineering section. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire massive ship heaved. Secondary explosions rippled through its structure. The reactor containment failed. "All ships, emergency thrust, get clear," Jake shouted. The Defiant and the surviving ships of Jake's wing fired their engines on overload, racing away from the doomed carrier. Behind them, the command carrier came apart in a catastrophic explosion. The blast wave caught the Defiant and sent it tumbling, but the ship held together. Barely. The Krell High Admiral died in that explosion, along with his entire command staff. Without leadership, the Krell fleet fell into complete chaos. Individual ships fought on, but there was no coordination, no strategy. They were just separate vessels being picked off one by one. Admiral Patterson saw the opportunity and pressed the attack. Her fleet surged forward, targeting the confused Krell ships. The battle turned from a fight into a slaughter. Krell vessels tried to retreat but found their escape routes blocked by human ships. Those that surrendered were taken prisoner. Those that fought were destroyed. The Battle of Arcturus lasted 6 hours. When it finally ended, the Krell fleet was shattered. 1,400 ships destroyed, 300 captured, the rest scattered and fleeing in all directions. The human fleet lost 78 vessels. Terrible casualties, but far less than anyone had dared hope. Jake's Defiant was barely functional, held together by emergency patches and prayers. But it had survived. Jake himself stood on the damaged bridge and felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. News of the victory spread across human space like wildfire. The Krell, the terrifying enemy that had destroyed New Salem, had been broken. Humanity had not just survived, but won. The celebrations were wild. People dancing in the streets on Earth and every colony. But President Helen Carter knew the war wasn't over. The Council still existed, still plotted against humanity. She addressed the unified Earth government in a closed session. "We have proven we can defend ourselves," she said. "Now we must ensure this never happens again. The Council tried to destroy us. We're going to make sure they can't threaten anyone else." Admiral Patterson received new orders. Take the fleet to Zenith Prime. It was time to end this at the source. The human fleet gathered its strength. More ships arrived from the shipyards. Fresh vessels to replace the losses at Arcturus. In 3 weeks, Patterson commanded over 400 warships. It was the most powerful fleet humanity had ever assembled. They set course for Zenith Prime. The journey took 3 weeks. During that time, Council species tried to negotiate. Messages came from a dozen different worlds, all claiming they had opposed the betrayal, all begging Earth not to attack. President Carter's response was broadcast to the entire galaxy. "Surrender unconditionally. Turn over everyone who participated in the conspiracy. Submit to investigation and trial. These are our only terms." Most Council members refused. They gathered every ship they could find, calling in favors and old alliances. By the time the human fleet arrived at Zenith Prime, a combined Council force of 600 vessels waited to defend it. Chancellor Vorth sent one final message. "You cannot win. We are the elder races. We have ruled the galaxy for millennia. Your little rebellion